I'm back. I wonder, I wonder if it shows. Here you go. This will give you some idea of how much I play this game. These are all the characters who I've already created and deleted, but I can bring them back. But it'll involve buying more character slots. I particularly like Boogie Demon. That was. Boogie Knight, that was it, and Dr. Damon, Kid Centurion, yeah, uh, Embodiment of Darkness. So you can play baddie characters, but I'm not very good at being a bad guy. I get a bit guilty. Sheriff Skid Row, that was sort of like a Punisher type bloke. Uh, Street Hammerstein, that was sort of soldier. Laughing Harper was like a sort of evil version of Arrow. Francesca Farrell or Ferrell. Arctic Tolerance, that was a sort of Mr. Freeze type character. Concrete Angela was basically like an angel. I got the idea from the Doctor Who story, Blink, these statues, and I thought, Kid Calculus was sort of inspired by reading a lot of Golden Age comics. Ultrasonic Girl, yeah, that was sort of like a Dreadwind, that was a villain. Silver Nemesis, that was also a villain. Silk Cut, I like that one, but I just wanted to make more Blue Streak Bozeman is like a cross between The Flash and Arrow. Zane is like a clone of Superman. Space Valkyrie's like Thor, but with a shield. Gaia Furious is like a Red Lantern. Yeah, I make a lot of them, and they're just stuff that pops into my head. Dr. Berlin was like a sort of villainous version of Captain America. Sister Hyde I actually really like. It was a Red Lantern. Ted Fast, another speedster. It's named after a character from a Godfrey Ho movie that was sort of like a Rambo rip-off. Yeah. Some of them, Superwoman, yeah. Was doing a sort of Supergirl, but an adult version. Goddess Gaia. Yeah. And Silver Blue Streak, that was the very first character I created, but that one's been knocking around in my head for years. Because I'm a big Flash fan. If I could have any of the superpowers, the one I'd really want is super speed. I'll have a go at hyperactive streak. Who there's another speedster, as they call it.
Hey, it's Oracle. Season's greetings and happy holidays. Unfortunately, this is a business call. The season of giving is being twisted into the season of getting by the Orange Lantern Larfleeze and his insatiable greed. Speak with Hal in the Watchtower and he'll give you the details.
See how I got him up to a nice high level, so super speed's right up. Cool.
Lois Lane reporting for Daily Planet Live. Look up in the sky. Is it a bird, a plane, or one of the new heroes and villains battling the Brainiac threat? One thing is sure, even with the conflict between Superman and Lex Luthor, or Wonder Woman and Circe, the only enemy they all have in common is Brainiac. Stay tuned for more as the battle against this alien invader plays out.
Been watching quite a bit of YouTube today because it's been incredibly boring at work. I was actually a bit late because that tailbone pain I've been having was really sort of playing up this morning. I really didn't have a lot of energy when I got up. You know, when you're in pain, especially when it wakes you up, it saps you of any sort of strength. So actually I'll turn this down. It's a little bit loud and drowning me out a little bit. But I watched quite an interesting stream. I was sort of posting links in the stream for funny stuff.
The Watchtower. We've
Hamlet
retrofitted
cigar
it a bit for all
adverts,
you
and there
new
was this
heroes.
thing
Green Lantern
called
John
Booty
Stewart drew up the
Olympics.
plans. He's an architect. Just follow your mini-map and activate the consoles. I'll tell you about the place.
Oh, no, gone past there. We go. Earth 3 emergency. No, I don't want that one. What's the winter one? That's it.
Hey, it's Oracle. Season's greetings and happy holidays. Unfortunately, this is a business call. The season of giving is being twisted into the season of getting by the Orange Lantern Larfleeze and his insatiable greed. Speak with Hal in the Watchtower and he'll give you the details.
I think I'm going to get rid of the... Got to alter my look a little bit. It looks a bit stupid. The shoulder pad's too big. Oh god, no. I wonder if I'll have none. Yeah. And I think I'll lose the cloak because that looks a little bit silly as well. Oh yeah, I'll have that.
Ever wanted your own holiday special? Now's your chance, because we need your help. Larfleeze, the Orange Lantern of Avarice, has gotten wind of the gift-giving season and wants to take everything for himself. This guy puts the my in miser. He's after everything he can get his hands on. Gifts, trees, snowmen, decorations, anything. And he's not going to share. Go out into the cities and find his stashes of stolen holiday goods. Recover as much as you can before he sends it back to his planet Okara. And give it to folks who really need it.
Okay. No. Oh, there are. What was... Yeah, I've been pretty bored today. Watched a really interesting Guru Larry video actually earlier about YouTube. What was it? Oh, it was gaming channels that you know, top 3 gaming channels that lost badly. And they showed one I used to watch years ago called Game Life. That's back before Google took over YouTube. It was back in like 2005, 2006 type time when the website was like... It was like... You know, Pornhub looks more like how the old YouTube was. Well, not even Pornhub, because Pornhub at least looks sort of technically well made, but the stuff of today is very, very different to how it was when I first started watching YouTube. Mainly the video quality is completely different, you know, stuff like
this is all for me.
Like 1080p and all that stuff. That was dreamland. Really, the thing that turned YouTube the quickest into a website that, you know, could cater better for people was actually blip.tv, because that was one that sort of was taking a lot of people who got very pissed off, because there was a period, oh I like those boots, very nice, when YouTube got over that, they were trying to sell themselves as a website that would be a lot more family friendly, and it backfired incredibly badly. And it ended up, they lost loads of, because they tried to censor people, they lost loads and loads of channels, like I think well, all of the forgotten what he's called, Channel Awesome. All the Channel Awesome people left YouTube because they were sick and tired of YouTube censoring them for basically swearing, you know, and it got very petty and, oh god, that like that. Got very silly for a long time. This is back in sort of 2009, 2010. Oh, I like that. It's cool, man. Oh, I'm not sure about those gloves. But yeah, and you know, there a lot of channels left, and YouTube was sort of pressured into updating and putting in more options and things like that, and the old YouTube, this is before AdSense came along, it was a very different place. You know, there was a lot more blatant taking television and sticking it on YouTube. It got to the point where Viacom actually sued the old YouTube for people uploading South Park.
Are you
And that was like the first big scandal. Oh, I've turned into a snowman. Yeah, it was the first major scandal of YouTube, but you know, the censorship didn't last because people started looking on all these other channels. I can't even remember what some of them were called. I know Blip was very popular because Blip had an app on phones, and well, I used to watch it on my Xbox 360, and it was actually better watching on a 360 than watching it on a PC. So if you watch it on a PC, you got lots and lots of adverts every 5 minutes. It was a bit distracting because they'd show the same advert about 1 million times. I can't remember how many times I watched the same Flora Butter advert. But people kept using ad blockers, and it sort of killed it basically killed Blip dead, which was a shame. So in many ways, it was slightly better than YouTube.
These are mine.
You know, the current YouTube's very much a clone of how Blip was. But there were quite a few .tvs for a while, but I think sort of just the accessibility and the interlinking stuff with YouTube has been the big selling point. Even though there is a lot of talk about Facebook are trying to make their version, it's like there was talk a couple of months ago about Yahoo buying MySpace from basically News International.
Get away from that!
Got our powers from it. Oh, get off, you sod!
These are mine.
So a lot of gaming channels, especially, they've all sort of moved to Twitch, but you know, there was a period, particularly back in 2010, 2012, there was a lot of gaming channels, like one of them that I still watch, called Hard for Games, that they're still about, but and so's James Rolfe, you know, angry video game nerd, but well, I remember watching him when he was the Nintendo nerd, so, you know, but yeah, a lot of channels over the years did die in strange ways.
Mine, mine, mine.
To help.
Those are mine. Back off.
Only 4 more to go. Ah, hello. Oh, sorry about the other day when my whole stream went down. For some reason my router decided at that very minute to... well, I'm supposed to turn my router off once every month, but normally I don't have to do it for like 3 months. But it decided at that very moment it needed to be turned off and turned back on again, which is bloody annoying. You know, it usually does that at the annoying time when I'm downloading something on my laptop. I had it happen one day when I was doing a download from Pornhub, and I had to turn the computer off and turn it back on again and unlock all the pages I'd looked at, and it was a fucking nightmare. And because I haven't got exactly the world's greatest memory, I had the annoyance of wondering, did I get the right pages? Did I miss something? So it's not great having a bad memory. I was supposed to phone a dentist today and I forgot again. I can hear it, just can't see it. Ugh. Oh, there it is.
Bullock to dispatch. We got both Killer Croc and Nightwing in the city.
It made me a little bit
I hear Croc's
nostalgic
working muscle for
looking at the old
So between the freaky reptile and Batman's
gaming
show-off
world
flyboy,
thing.
it's anybody's bet who takes down Bane first.
Sounds like a popular guy.
Yeah, life's hard for us, He-Men. Say, you doing anything later tonight?
Those are mine! So hungry!
It's all mine!
The only thing about this game
This
I
is
don't
all for
like,
me.
I really wish... I wish they'd make a sequel to this, maybe a little bit
Get
more
away from that.
updated. But the one thing I don't like is you don't have secret identities.
Those are mine!
Because I think that'd be well cool if you could...
Get away
You didn't
from
just
that!
play the superhero, you played like the secret identity bit, so you could have a sort of Sims effect. Because my favourite superhero disguise out of all
Just
of
what I
them is Billy Batson. You know,
Larfleeze wasn't content to
Captain
steal
Marvel.
Just
He's a little kid who
presents
turns
this
into a
holiday
big,
season. He's
muscly
escalated to
man.
stealing power rings from fallen Green Lanterns
You know,
near
that
the
is a
conflict in
pretty cool
Metropolis.
design.
The more
I'm
rings he
really
gets,
surprised
the
that
more
they haven't
powerful he
used
becomes.
Captain
And that's not
Marvel
good
in
for
any of
anybody.
these DC
The rings have left
movies.
an enormous energy signature, and I'm
You know,
tracing it now.
because they
Pinpointed
killed
his
Superman
location.
only
He's
to bring
holed
him
up
back
at a
in the
secret
next
research
movie. It would have been
facility.
much
I'm
better
adding the
to
location to
leave
your on-duty
Superman
tab.
dead
Head
for
there,
like
and I'll contact
2
you on
films and then bring him back, and instead use Captain Marvel, who's basically got he's got similarities to Superman, but he's a bit more innocent in many ways and a bit more naive. And it could have meant that they could have had the Flash not be basically Wally West, because it's the second time this has happened, because the Flash TV show, the plot is too much like Wally West, the sort of Silver Age Wally West. Instead of like, not Silver Age, Bronze Age Wally West, who sort of, he replaced Barry Allen at the end of, oh god, what was it? In Infinity Crisis, yeah, it was in Infinite Crisis, I think it was. The first major DC event back in the 1980s. I only read it recently because I got a special big book version, graphic novel version, because no. Oh, let's see if it's... Yeah, the Flash, Barry Allen, dies in that. He ages to death, travelling at super speed. He does some sort of event in...
The Batmobile lost a wheel and the Joker got away. Hey!
So for a long time, particularly during the 80s and 90s, it was Wally West. Wally West was more of a sort of jokey, innocent, slightly naive character, and that's how they played it in the TV show and the Justice League movie. He's Wally West. He's not Barry Allen. Barry Allen was like, he wasn't jaded, but he was an adult. He wasn't sort of naive and childish and sort of like the butt of the jokes. But you know, the problem with the Justice League movie is I watched it twice, and the second viewing you really begin to realise all the problems with the script and how a lot of it doesn't really make much sense. And yeah, it's an improvement over the previous DC movie. Certainly an improvement over the pretty dreadful Suicide Squad movie, but it's still that they're still not getting it right. You know, I think really they need someone in charge of the DC movies like they have with Aaron Aviada or whatever his name is with Marvel, because he took over Marvel's media, and he's the one who's been behind all of the TV shows, all of the animated shows, all of the films, trying to keep them all in some form of continuity. Really, the person they should have put in charge of the DC movies was Bruce Timm, because he's made the most successful version of DC media in that he made Batman the animated series, then he went on to make Superman the animated series, Justice League, Young Justice, all these sort of standalone movies. Some of them have been a bit crap, some of them have been quite good. I didn't like The Killing Joke, but I never liked The Killing Joke the comic. I always found it a bit ugh. I could see what Alan Moore was trying to do, but I think the execution just didn't work, and it felt a very nasty story, you know, an unnecessary sort of viciousness towards I actually found I'm not a feminist, but I could see that it's not a very pro-feminist story, and it's a bit of an unlikable story in many ways. You know, it's one of those that really I don't think they should have made into an animated thing. Right, queue up for secret. Yeah, well, where is it?
Look out!
Oh, I can't find it. Ah, right, there it is.
Run! Run! Run for your life!
Let's get rid of some of the loot I've collected that I don't need. Really, if they were going to do DC properly, they should have really done different versions, because that's the strength DC has over Marvel, because Marvel's only been going since the 1960s, but DC's been going since the 1930s. It's like you could do
Anything
a series
in
of
particular
movies
you're interested
using
in
completely
purchasing
different
today?
styles. Like have one set in the in each of the ages. You know, because the current crop of films, sort of since Dark Knight Rises, have really been sort of modern age. You could do a Bronze Age, you know, one set in the 80s maybe. Also, there's Silver Age. You could have like a 1960s or Mad Men looking thing, and you could have a Golden Age set in the 1930s, or set just before World War II. I think really the worst mistake I've seen is with Wonder Woman, setting that in in World War One was a little bit of a stupid move, really. World War One doesn't really offer itself very well to heroism, because it was a bit of a meat grinder, stalemate war. It wasn't one where, you know, either side was sort of wasn't like dealing
We've
with
got
the
a fire
Nazis.
to put out. Bane's back on the Venom and taking over Cape Carmine.
You know,
Sounds
there
like a
was a
dream
reason
job.
why back in the 1970s, when they made the Wonder Woman TV show, they didn't set it during World War One. They set it during World War Two because, well, they set it in World War Two, but they didn't set it in Europe. They set it in America. Wonder Woman was mostly fighting fifth columnists and spies and things like that. Oh, great. Yeah, because I really like that. And I wasn't too keen on when the studio decided to make a budget cut and set it during the 1970s with... oh, everyone can see me better.
This is Amanda
in
Waller.
the...
This operation is now under the jurisdiction
That's-
of Task
he's a
Force
Yellow
X.
Lantern.
For the duration, you will be
There's a
working with
blue
villains from the
lantern
Suicide
with a
Squad
red
to complete
ring.
the objective.
Oh, there's a
Focus
bloke
on the
who
mission.
thinks he's the
We'll
Punisher.
keep your guests in line.
Oh no, he doesn't look like the Punisher.
Larfleeze has locked himself behind a security door. The Whoa, check out that horde. There's the power rings trapped
Should have a
inside
big
those
chest
emitters. They're fueling the shield surrounding
thing.
him. Get in the mix and interrupt the flow
See,
of energy.
this is why this game would work better if they made a sequel where you could freely mod.
Use those shielded constructs
Bit like
to
some of the
disrupt the
wrestling
energy
games where you
from each
could
emitter.
mod your
That will
character
temporarily
and
disable the shields
upload
protecting
images
Larfleeze.
and things like that. Because that way you solve well, people would be even more inventive. It'd be more like sort of Second Life than just a superhero game.
The weather outside is frightful, but my presence oh so delightful. Some of you have got nowhere to go. You just get out. This stash is mine, and I'm not sharing.
Let's get behind some cover and then I'll change my loader. I think I've got the wrong powers up.
What's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine. Mine, I tell you.
That one. Whoa. Bit too fast for the game. Oh, no, do the thing. Oh. Okay then. Whatever. Whatevs. Oh. Also, this game doesn't have vehicles, which is another could be solved using something like the Cry engine, I think they call it. The one that was developed for the Crisis games, because you could freely jump into a car and then jump out again. Even though my favourite of these gaming engines is the Frostbite engine. It looks so fucking perfect.
You'll pay for those rings! I'll take everything you got!
Funny in this that Larfleeze is so small. It's actually more like the Larfleeze that appeared in the CGI Green Lantern show, because the one in the comic looked like a giant sort of big beast type thing, but was insane as well. But you know, insane with greed, a little bit of sort of like, you know, gold fever. Hey! Hey! Wish you could do those moves in the regular game. A bit like that was the one thing I liked about Destiny, even though I'm not going anywhere near Destiny 2. Of what I've seen of it from Total Biscuit and Jim Sterling's reviews, it looks fucking awful. Basically, it looks like all they've done is taken the original game,
I wasn't hurting anyone.
altered some of the skins, put in a new plot line, and that's it.
Getting those rings out of Larfleeze's hands will make the holiday
Well, they've
season
got this
safer for
special offer thing during Christmas, where you can sort of add all this extra stuff to your character, all these different colours and all that, to your outfits. But it's only like 1% of people who actually play the game will have access to this, because it's like a randomizer, and everyone else will have to pay for it. And it's been basically pointed out by Jim Sterling. This is exactly what EA were doing with the DLC on Battlefront, and it's a bit of a kick in the... Oh, what happened there? Huh. For some reason my controller decided to turn itself off. Right. Weird. I do intend to get a Battlefront though in the new year, because once all the DLC and all the bugs are fixed, because when it was released it was extremely buggy. Oh, I don't want one of those.
You must be crazy, coming in here like that. Ow, that really hurt. What gives?
No. Six holly leaves. Oh wow, that was well worth the all the time, wasn't it? Ah, right. Right. It's a problem with a super speed. If you get distracted for about a second, you end up walking over everything because you're so fast that you can... Oh, actually, I can show you something here. Oh, get off me, you sods. Because you got speed force powers. Oh, hello. There he is. Ah!
Venom is supposed to make me invincible.
You get so fast that you can run on water. Which the Flash actually does in some of the comics. And personally, my favourite version of the Flash was in the Justice League cartoon. That they wisely just said, "Oh, it's Wally West," because Wally West's a more fun, innocent character.
He uses Venom to fuel his immense strength and brutality, and now his gang is selling the stuff all over the East End. Venom's a short-lasting steroid, not your typical street drug. Take some samples for analysis, and get that Venom off the streets.
Venom, of course, affecting the memory, supposedly. Well, that's the plot trick that they've used a couple of times. I think they used it in part 2 of Nightfall.
Don't let those guys get
to
away.
Explain away that in the first part of Nightfall, Bane knows who Batman is. He gets into the Batcave. He breaks Batman's back. But then all of a sudden forgets it all because the effect of Venom damages the memory and the memory. What's it called? Not anagrams. Axons. The axons in the brain. That's what stores your memory. The little grey cells, as Poirot would call them. But yeah, they're the bioelectric fields in your head that store memory. That's why if you put a big negative charge through someone's head, it will alter their personality and their memory. It's something that in the early days of electroconvulsive treatments for depression, they really didn't understand about, and they were giving lots of people electric shocks in their brain, and they were forgetting who they were.
It's got nothing to do with you.
Because they used to use electrotherapy, where basically they put a charge through the sides of your head to treat depression. And people thought that it was being successful, that it was making people happier, and it wasn't actually doing that at all. It was causing lasting damage to their brains, which would they'd become happy because they'd lose memories, and sometimes those were memories that were making them depressed, like, you know, if they were abused as a child or something. The cure was basically just to rob them of their memory, which you know, it's not exact. It becomes an ethical question. Should you be robbing people of their memories? Because without your memories, you're not really who. Your personality is based a lot on what you remember about yourself. There's a snowman following me. How freaky is that? Moving around like a Dalek. Oh, I see. He's following me. Oh, it's someone who partnered up with me.
This is Bane's turn now.
Silicon wafer. You won't know the wafer reference unless you watched Monty Python films. The most disgusting of which is actually one of my favourites, The Meaning of Life, with Mr. Creosote, who's a greedy rich man who eats so much food he actually explodes. Actually, my favourite, to tell the truth, my favourite Monty Python film is probably The Holy Grail. That's the one I reference the most. You know, the Castle Anthrax and the oh god, the bloke at the bridge.
This stuff's worth more than that, bro.
Oh, I can't do that right now. I'm being shot at.
Run! This got nothing to do with you.
Life of Brian's good, but it doesn't have the sort of visual jokes that are in the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail, especially the two halves of coconuts, which was actually a joke because lots of people don't realise that the Monty Python films were all actually classed as independent films, and they were financed mainly by George Harrison from the Beatles. And they couldn't afford horses, and also supposedly Terry Jones couldn't ride a horse. So instead they came up with the idea, let's use two halves of coconuts. And there's that brilliant joke in it about swallows, that African swallows could carry a coconut. And, you know, it's just really stupid.
1199, request assistance. Quick, you're not gonna get to this stuff.
Hey, I've unlocked something. Right, let's have a look at what I've unlocked. Wait.
I'm hit.
Let's get some super speedy shit.
Call for backup. Why you? Get the shipments in the truck. We got a whole ass to the Venom lab.
Also, the taking the piss out of the French, which is very popular with English people. Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelled of elderberries. Of course I'm French. Why do you think I have this outrageous accent? I think a lot of the problems I have with modern comedy films are that they're just... they can be funny, but they're not ridiculous funny. Even the ones like, say, Anchorman, they're on the right track, but they're just not silly enough. I think part of the problem is that modern comedies aren't very good at getting the right tone. It's probably also the reason that oh yeah, the bloodthirsty bunny. Yeah. Some call me Tim.
Thanks. You're all right, buddy.
Tim the Enchanter. But yeah, the tone is such a hard thing to do. And if it's done well, you get something like Dumb and Dumber. If it's done badly, you get something like Ghostbusters 2016, which just, oh god, it wouldn't even be considered bad.
This stuff's worth more than
as sort of, if they took all the comedy out of Ghostbusters 2016. You know, there's nothing worse than a bad comedy. You know, some movies can get away with bad comedy as long as the rest of the movie's okay, like, say, The Fifth Element. But if it's if it's completely built on its comedy and it's not funny,
do something.
American comedy rarely works. I don't know, because you know, you got films like one of my favourites is Blazing Saddles, which is absolutely hilarious, and also Young Frankenstein and Spaceballs, and one that not many people have seen now, but was very popular back in the time of VHS. That I watched multiple times. Well, I got it on Amazon Prime quite recently. Is Clue, which was a film version of Cluedo, and that's a very funny film. But and Spinal Tap. I was talking about Spinal Tap actually earlier. I was doing that joke about, you know, where he's got the speaker. And he says the dial goes up to 11. And he says, yeah, because most normal dials only go up to 10. But this is 10 and 1. But, yeah, I think, yeah, part of the problem with modern comedy is also studio tampering doesn't help. That's why independent comedies are usually a lot funnier than...
Take some samples for analysis,
you know, one of the comedies recently in a cup made by James Gunn, who's now making Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He made one called Super, which was about a bloke who has a complete nervous breakdown, goes a bit loopy, and starts pretending to be a superhero. And it's a very violent movie. People get their heads blown off and all sorts of stuff. And the hero's power isn't really a power. All he does is hit people with a monkey wrench.
Take out their
but
venom injectors. They'll talk.
it's quite a wacky movie.
I don't know anything. I swear.
Did enjoy Stone. Blues Brothers is another classic American comedy that has really sort of stood the test of time. I also like the Chevy Chase Fletch movies. They were always very funny.
They don't tell me anything.
And he did a black comedy with John Carpenter called Memoir of an Invisible Man. That was a very good film. But you know, Chevy Chase at one time he was like sort of the king of comedy, but when it turned out that most of it was being fueled by cocaine, and everyone went. That's the thing that annoys me about the hypocrisy of Hollywood. That you know, most of the Hollywood systems run on cocaine, even today. But as soon as it's found out that someone's on cocaine, their career's sort of over for a while. Because there's a very good, I strongly recommend, Chevy Chase movie with Goldie Hawn called Seems Like Old Times, that I won't give the plot away, but if you look it up on
We've
Netflix
been tracking Bane's distribution system through
Amazon
Gotham.
Prime,
They've
it
made
is
me as a cop, but
a
you can
really,
get through
really
and check out
funny
those
film
terminals for me. What do you say?
about a bloke who's he gets sort of threatened into a bank robbery, and the only that they rob the bank and they dump him off. The two criminals, and he goes to find his ex. He goes and hides at his ex-wife's house, who's played by Goldie Hawn, and she's like a sort of attorney who is trying to help all of these sort of these ex-criminals, and she employs them, and they're all sort of like real sort of dodgy characters, but it's very funny film. It's probably got one of the best endings of a movie I've ever seen, where she's got her new I don't think it's her husband, I think it's her boyfriend, and he's like a real top attorney bloke, and it's a really funny film. Even though the one good thing about I'm going to be over at my mum's during Christmas Day, because I've got them an Amazon stick, I hunt out movies they'll like to watch, because I hate watching films with adverts. Balls the life out of me. And I've already looked out Home Alone, because Home Alone's a really good, funny Christmas movie. It's not my favourite Macaulay Culkin film though, that'd be Uncle Buck. Because John Candy, you know, I don't gamble, but very much to my niece and nephew, I'm like Uncle Buck. Not really to my nephew now, because my nephew sort of finds me very embarrassing. Because he's about 13 years old, and he's gone into that phase of not wanting to be near anyone who's not cool. And I actually embarrass him in front of his friends by sort of waving at him and all that. His friends say, your uncle's a bit weird. Yeah, that's what he said. He said to me when I was over there at the weekend, he says, please don't wave at me when my friends are around, because they think you're weird. I was like, oh, alright then. Still, my sister used to say that. She used to say I was embarrassing when we were at school. Really, I shouldn't have gone to an English secondary school. I should have really gone to a special school. I only found out
I'm gonna break you, chump. Just
about
like
2 years ago that I'm autistic. So, yeah, I can understand completely now why I appear to be so odd. I thought everyone thought the same way I did.
Bane's recruiters often bear the image of Kamakshli, god of the hunt.
Leave some of the bad guys for me, will ya?
Ah. Oh, pressed the wrong one. Oh, gotta lock him up.
You got lucky, punk. That's all.
If you want a recommendation on
bad,
a really good
but with Venom
YouTube
on the street,
channel
everyone
to
thinks
check
they're a
out,
backbreaker.
as well
Good
as
to know you're out there taking care of it.
Guru Larry, who's an English YouTuber who does computer game. If you're into wrestling, there's a fella called Matt Zane, who he does videos about wrestling. He does this show called Wrestling with Regret. And I was watching it earlier and having a good laugh. He was listing off all of the worst matches at WrestleMania. Because I've watched... I started watching WrestleMania about WrestleMania 25. Oh, bipolar. Ooh. I thought I was bipolar, but supposedly when I went back to the site... Well, I went to the doctor... because I was suffering with depression because my dad was dying.
Who's that?
And they gave me a psychological analysis, and it turns out I haven't got manic depression. The bloke who told me I had it years ago got the diagnosis wrong.
We're trying
Said
to see if we
that
can collect the basic injectors the hoppers carry.
I get black
Venom can't
depression,
enter
but
their
it's not manic.
How about
it's
Can you grab
it's
some?
just basically angst.
This is a new sort of venom,
a build-up of
extremely
angst.
volatile and short-lived. So Bane's thugs need a constant supply to keep up their strength.
Because I said about that, they gave me a load of Tegretol to take for my depression. I said it's not working, it's not doing anything. I still feel miserable and depressed and all that. And said, well, you haven't got, you're not bipolar then. It's not.
Destroy it.
Because the other thing that they give people is lithium, but lithium, it can damage your, I think it's your liver or something, your liver or your kidneys. But they give people with extreme manic depression lithium.
I smell fresh meat.
Most famous manic depressive I know is
you.
Richard Dreyfuss, the star of Jaws.
Make me invincible.
Who's that? Well, he's been in the news recently because supposedly because the news is trying to. I got the weeping to thing. It can be annoying, yeah. Well, I suppose so. You know, I thought I was completely normal. I had suspicions years ago that I had autism because I was telling an ex-girlfriend about when we were listening to Beethoven's 7th second movement. I was telling her about the dark greens, and she didn't have a clue what I was going on about. Because I hear music in colours, and I thought everyone did that. And I was like, yeah, can't you see the dark greens in your mind when it's playing the second movement? It's just like, she looked at me like I'd sort of pulled out a kipper and hit her on the head with it. I was like, yes. I can even sometimes smell colours.
This is Bane's turn now.
And I've got total recall of smells. So I can actually sit in bed and if I smell something,
Venom is awesome.
it sometimes pops in a memory, but I can even remember smells, which is weird. But yeah, the total recall thing's quite, you know, quite odd, because I've met savants before. There used to be one when at the drop-in centre I used to go to when I was suffering with depression, and he could remember every word in a story that he'd ever read. So he didn't have to read the book multiple times. He could get it from like one read. And I've read about savants who can look at a place and then weeks and weeks later can sit down and draw a picture of it. And it's because they've got a complete photographic memory.
Venom, what gives? No! Don't take away the venom! Venom is supposed to make me invincible. Oh, man. Fine. I don't need any help. I need it. The venom is mine!
Unfortunately, some people who have autism,
I love this venom.
They can never.
So strong.
Well, their mind wanders too much, and they can never really be functional autistic. Because I'm functional autistic, but some savants are amazing. I've read about ones who have got brains literally like a computer, and they can do complex mathematics that, you know, people normally use supercomputers to work out.
I need it.
Like prime numbers, they can work out all the prime numbers.
So much pain.
I can't remember what his name is. There's this boy who did a TED talk, who has he's a savant of mathematics, and he's, well, supposedly he's got a job at NASA now.
What are you?
Because he can. It's just amazing.
No
he's like
for me. You just get beat up when you use that stuff.
He had very sort of understanding parents who actually understood what autism is, who helped him in a lot of ways. But I remember watching him being interviewed on one of these American shows, and you know, it's usually in language where you can tell someone is autistic, because there's a certain rhythm that people have in the way they talk when they're you know, they're at a level where, you know, it's like trying to learn a precision. It's like reading, because I couldn't read till I was 16, and for a long time, even understanding emotions was a real problem for me when I was a teenager.
The Falcone crime syndicate has ruined this neighborhood.
Because
these Bane thugs are
it's like
me.
listening to another language. Unless you completely understand it, you know, I can understand why people in my family thought I was weird and all that, but they
what gives?
It's not being able to interpret other people's things. I couldn't understand body language until I was sort of, about 16 as well. I couldn't understand when I was annoying people by being annoying because I talk and talk and talk. Sometimes with people not being able to get a word in edgeways, I still occasionally will annoy my stepdad, not realising I'm doing it. But he's a lot more understanding now that I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just, you know, I just trying to explain to someone when you understand something by the first 3 words of what they've said, they're saying, it comes across sometimes as being rude, but it's not being rude. It's understanding what they're talking about before they've even got it out. Which, you know,
Bane's addicted to venom, but he's no fool.
It's something that you don't notice you're doing unless someone points out it's what you're doing. It's like someone who has got like
one should try to take out Bane alone. Bane can be deadly.
Oh God, what's the condition? It's not anger management. It's social awkwardness. That they'll sometimes come across as being extremely weird when they're not. They just don't understand how to deal with social situations. But yeah, I've had a lot of problems like that over the years. Mainly, the biggest problem I had was that when I was at school, people really didn't understand about a lot of things. Like, I'm sure that some of the kids I went to school with had personality disorders. Because some of them, you know, you think the alt-right are racists. You should have heard some of the kids at my school. I knew a bloke who was absolutely obsessed with Mississippi burning. And I watched it with him one evening. And he was he was up there cheering the KKK scenes. And I was like, okay. You know, I had the suspicion that he liked the movie not for the sort of fighting racists or the racists. Still, I was see, people seem to think that, you know, all the social justice you got today, oh, they've been at it for ages and ages and ages. I can remember going to work and having people describing black and Asian people as coloured, using other wording. My dad using the N-word to describe black people, and my granddad, Jesus Christ, he some of the things he said I wouldn't even say now, because I'd be cringing. Because, you know, the older generations that I grew up with, yeah, they were racist, but my granddad was really racist. And he was very anti-Semitic. You know, he'd absolutely love watching InfoWars, because all of the loony sort of, you know, stuff about the globalists. A lot of people don't realise where the globalist stuff comes from. The globalist stuff actually comes from the 1930s, because in the 1930s, the conspiracy theory at that time was that all the banks were being run by Jewish houses, and it was a big conspiracy, and they tried to blame things like the Russian Revolution on the Jewish population, and yeah, there was a lot of anti-Semitism around. But that's where globalism comes from, the term globalists. And globalist elites are that they're Jewish. And yeah, Yeah, Alex Jones going on and on about these people is a type of code because his ex-wife described one of the reasons why she left him was because he was anti-Semitic and he was surrounded by anti-Semitic people who, you know, that whole thing where the custody battle, I think that was probably one of the funniest things of this year, especially when he had to admit in a courtroom that he's not being genuine at all on InfoWars. He's all of it is a made-up character, which I've had suspicions of for years. Of that, I just couldn't believe that the level of bullshit that Alex Jones comes out with is real. I think he just makes it up as he goes along. Oh, the crazy... actually, the pseudoscience is the funniest stuff. You know the stuff about the tap water turning frogs gay? That came from a report back in the 1980s about estrogen getting into the water supply. Women taking birth control tablets, basically the pill, when they go for a pee, all of that estrogen goes into down the sewers, and then the sewers are filtrated, and eventually that water will get into the water system in very, very small amounts, and over the years it's increased to the point where estrogen is in a lot of water supplies in the West, but it's in such small amounts that, you know, only wacky conspiracy theorists believe that it's affecting human beings when it's not. It affects amphibians because amphibians are asexual. There's lots of cases of frogs changing sex. Actually, salamanders are the ones who do it the most. There's a type of salamander from Africa that if you buy it on its own, it's very pale and it's white, and it is literally completely comprised of stem cells. That's why it's completely white. But if you add oh god, what's it called? You put it on cuts. Oh, it's a yellow material, liquid. That's gone completely out of my head. But you add this liquid to the water they live in, and all of a sudden they'll turn into an adult and they grow sex organs. But yeah, amphibians, because amphibians are literally the stepping stone between sea life and land life. A lot of them have got very weird genetics.
You're on our turf now. Great. Now I'll never get to have venom.
Yeah, stay down. But yeah, you know, it's funny as well because if you read Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, it's actually a plot point in Jurassic Park. I think that's really where Alex Jones got a lot of the bullshit. In Jurassic Park, all of the dinosaurs are supposed to be female, but they use genetic material to fill in the gaps
Vicky
from
Vale
frogs.
exclusive.
We're almost there.
Just
around the corner.
Like I said, some frogs can switch sex. They can, if there's not enough females, the males will start changing their hormone structure and turn into females. And that's what happens in Jurassic Park, and the dinosaurs start having babies. But you know, Alex Jones, the constant level of bullshit.
Don't hurt me.
You know, is you know, I think the funniest.
Hey, so
where
Batman
you could
sent you
openly
in.
see he
Good
was
times.
bullshitting the audience.
Let's show these guys we don't need their
It
stinking venom
was
to
just
beat them
after
down.
the Las Vegas shooting. It's a video somewhere on YouTube of him and the other crackpot, Paul Joseph Watson, and Watson's a little bit suspicious about the motives of the shooter. And Alex Jones pulls his phone out and says, "Oh, my secret intelligence bloke in the SWAT unit says, oh, look, they've got into the room and it's full of Antifa posters all over the walls." And you could just tell he was bullshitting. But you know, it seems to be the attitude pretty much of tabloid journalism, that any mud sticks. Say anything about a person because you know, anything to grab a headline and get attention. It's like all that Pizzagate stuff. I didn't believe for a minute in that Pizzagate stuff because it sounded so ludicrous and so ridiculous. And it turned out in the end it was blokes on 4chan trolling, which I found really funny. They were basically trolling all these media people who were looking for a big story to discredit Hillary Clinton, so they just made up a load of old bullshit about code words that what they were talking about pizzas is a type of code word for something. Oh, come on, skip.
Not to mention the Joker.
Vicky Vale reporting. Xochipilli is frequently depicted by street artists.
It's the most boring thing I find about Batman is his rogues gallery, because Batman as a character to me in lots of ways doesn't make sense. I can understand why they keep characters because Batman's morality is he doesn't kill the criminals, but surely the criminals are going to start killing the criminals. Because the criminals in Gotham are more like sort of gangsters. They're not really sort of like people trying to take over the world. So why is there not been stories where, you know, the Penguin's been killed by the Joker? Doesn't make any sense.
About rehab possibilities. In the meantime, he'll stay in custody. Meet Batwoman at the safe house. I'll have further missions for you soon. Batman out.
Yeah, but Batman's okay, but I'm so sick of it being in the media all the time. The amount of Batman, just I don't understand why he was in the action scenes in the Justice League movie. Just seems so out of place, having someone who hasn't got any powers.
You've
fighting,
survived Scarecrow and Bane. I can only imagine what Gotham will throw at you next. Just to have you on the team.
Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf's like a god. Well, he's one of the new gods. And he's fighting Batman. I was just like, what?
I'm Booster Gold, and this is the Booster Gold Exploration Adventure Series. This adventure will take you to Gotham's notorious East End, one of the most dangerous areas of the city.
You know, that's
Anything
the major problem with
today?
Suicide Squad. In that the villains that they chose was supposed to be for fighting Superman. That was like one of the major plot points of the whole thing. I'm like, so Captain Boomerang, whose only power is he uses a boomerang. And then you've got Harley Quinn, who uses a baseball bat or a hammer. You've got Deadshot, who all he does is use guns. Yeah, and you've got the Mexican fella who has pyrokinetic powers but doesn't want to use them. And this is what you're going to use if Superman ever went rogue. Seems a bit stupid to me. Get rid of that. Get that one. I'll keep that one. Don't need that.
Anything in particular you're interested in purchasing today?
So look at the shoots. Let's preview some clues. So look at those boots. No. Nope. Yeah, I'll get that. Rivet belt. No. Nope. No. Oh, yeah, I love that. Nope. Yeah. Nope. Yeah. Right. Change my costume up a bit. Yeah, looking cool. Right, let's do some of these 4-player ones. Oh, oh, there it is. Oh. Yeah. Area 51Q. Roll will be damage. Yeah. Yeah, the it's like I like all of the DC shows apart from Gotham, because I just couldn't understand what the point of wanting to watch a series about the bloody miserable world of Gotham. Like, you know, watching Batman Begins, Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, they're great movies, but they're so grim, and I'm just sick of watching dark heroes. It's like the reason why I really hated Logan. I just found it so bloody miserable. Why can't we have heroes acting like heroes? Why are they all got to be grim and dour and just... Oh.
Ow! Let's smash your face right here now.
You know, why can't you make a film like the Justice League of America cartoon? You know, everyone slapping each other on the back. You could actually make it a bit of a comedy. Have it like sort of Anchorman type humour. I like the miserable hero thing. Well, you'll certainly like the show they're doing of the Punisher. I'm staying away from that because I'm a massive 1980s, early 90s Punisher fan. I can see how that show could go very, very wrong. Especially if they try and put love interest and things like that in it. And Punisher and Archie comics. There's even a Punisher and Eminem comic. Because there's been lots of times they've gone so massively wrong with a Punisher over the years. I remember there was a period where they had the Punisher as a Frankenstein monster called Frankencastle, where he got killed and brought back to life as sort of this this Frankenstein creature, and it was just like really stupid. Then they had a story where the Punisher died and came back as an avenging angel. There was one where there was a woman Punisher as well, even though the bloke who wrote it also wrote Painkiller Jane, which is another character who's very much like the Punisher, but she's got elements similar to Deadpool in that she can take a lot of shots before it kills her, type thing. Because, you know, if you destroyed every part of Deadpool at the same time, it would kill him. You know, he can be killed. But, like Logan can as well. Because they had the New Warriors comic had a version of Wolverine who gets atomized. Oh, Preacher, yeah, I used to read the Preacher comics. The Mark Miller, I follow him on Twitter. He's a very funny man.
A small choice.
But
apples.
Yeah,
with Captain Boomerang, the apple did not fall far from the tree. Both father and son have donned this guise.
People
and
don't
both
understand
are on display.
Vertigo comics. With Preacher and all these characters, and also Sandman, all those writers, they were sort of poached from the UK. All of the major writers for those comics.
Listen up.
They all worked
Joker
for
clowns are
2000
holding cops
AD
hostage
for
over at
years
the
and
old
years and
roller
years.
coaster.
Brilliant
I need you to get
comic
those men to
by
safety.
Neil Gaiman, or Gaiman, or Gaiman, or whatever the hell people call him, called Halo James, that was basically about a female soldier in the future. And there's been loads of 2000 AD stories that I like 2000 AD because it doesn't sort of, it's a very adult orientated comic. It's very good to read if you're a teenager because it's so different from like American comics. Like one of my favourite 2000 AD characters is Johnny Alpha of the Strontium Dogs, who are like mutants. They live in a society where mutants are a minority group who are sort of attacked very much like, you know, racism. And and there's lots of other Strontium Dogs like Duran Red, who's a vampire, a female vampire, and it's a really good comic. The problem with UK comics are that a lot of companies like Fleetway have never been big money makers, so they've never really got the characters have never sort of been a global impact. But 2000 AD is in comic book form in America, but it's not very widely sold, which is annoying. The only real sort of breakthrough 2000 AD character that's sort of well known globally is Judge Dredd. And Dredd 3D was I'd say that's probably one of the best adult comic movies ever. I can probably find it. Yeah, well, that's the major benefit to digital comics, that you know they're not limited to the accessibility. What's my weapons? Yeah, there's a site I go on called Planet Susie that is like a sort of it's mainly porn, but people put comic and music on there, and you can access it through all of these like sites where, you know, it's sort of like torrents sites, and I've got quite a few digital comics that way, because some of them are basically just where they've taken the comic page and they've run it through a flatbed scanner, and some of them are completely out of print comics, like Rom Space Knight, which is I read Rom Space Knight comics when I was a kid, and it was pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing as a comic as well. If you're interested, go to Linkara, atop the fourth wall, his channel. He did a whole retrospective on the Rom comics and how amazing they were, because Rom was originally a toy, and Marvel licenses of comics are sort of it's very strange, because some of them would actually be included.
Trigon is using his daughter, the Titan Raven, to spread his foul energy.
Oh no,
then he will destroy her. Both she and the city are doomed unless...
Ready for more action? A situation is rapidly spiraling out of control in Little Bohemia. Speak to Dr. Sarah Charles at the 5th Precinct.
Yeah, he did a whole retrospective on the Rom comics, which, if you sat down and sort of went through all of the Marvel licensed comics, these are licenses for toys, particularly in the 80s, there are a lot of comics that were linked with toy companies, and some of them overbled into the regular Marvel universe. Two of the probably one of the most ridiculous would be a comic called US1 that was for Hot Wheels slot cars, and they created this character called Ulysses Solomon Archer, or USA, you see, and he is a trucker who's got a truck that is like a sort of James Bond wet dream. This thing can do everything, and he controls it using a silver dollar. He's also got a metal head with circuitry in it that can pick up radio signals. He's such a ludicrous character that he's actually appeared quite recently in a Deadpool comic. Because Deadpool, the thing I like about the Deadpool comics are that they'll pick up on all the really ridiculous characters of sort of early DC, early Marvel. One of my favourites that I've heard may actually even be made into a movie, I was reading on one of these movie websites, is Fool Killer. And I was a massive fan of Fool Killer, especially in the 90s. And he isn't really a villain. Or he's not a villain, he's not a hero. He's sort of like an anti-hero who he kills criminals using a gun that literally makes them evaporate, and it's quite a it's almost like Marvel's that attempt to do a character like Rorschach, in the, you know, he's a it's like a murderer, but I suppose the only I'm trying to think. Yeah, the only time I've seen a character like that that's not in comics would be in oh god, what's his name? It's the one about the serial killer who kills other serial killers. And it was a TV show. I can't remember what it was. It was set in
Patients are rioting
Florida.
all over the Metawing at Metropolis General Hospital. LexCorp is trying to keep
My
Metro
sister's
PD from
mad
the
on
scene,
the books.
so
She's read all
something
the
big
book
is up.
versions.
Superman wants you to handle
And the bloke
this
got
metahuman encasement device.
he got
for
too
as long as
close.
it lasts.
Dexter, yeah, that's
This is
it.
Superman.
Yeah,
Lex Luthor
that's
sponsored
sort
a
of what the
special
full
Metawing at
killer's
Metropolis
like.
General
He's like
Hospital.
Dexter.
Everything
But,
points to it being a cover for illegal experiments.
It was
help the escaping patients
like he's a
as much as you
completely
can.
heartless killer of criminals, but the main story is how it bleeds over into his private life, and how he gets injured a couple of times by the criminals he's trying to kill, and how he tries to cover it up from his girlfriend, and eventually she gets killed and he completely loses his mind. But there's actually been more than one Fool killer over the years. But it's quite an interesting character, and I've got a feeling that because of the success of Deadpool, Marvel's next big step will be to have less of the end of the world baddie
Use Starlab's
blue
special
beam in the
containment
sky
sphere to take them to safety.
storyline.
The escaping patients
that
have
they
managed
might-
to take some of
well,
their records with them. We can't let
I
LexCorp
like
take and use that information
Spider-Man
against them.
Homecoming for the simple reason that
Some of
the
LexCorp's
villain in it
goons are
was
using
just
genetic
doing it to
transcoders
make
to
money.
monitor
He
metahuman
wasn't
patients.
trying to take
Help
over
us
the world or
confiscate
anything.
that equipment.
He just felt that, you know, he wasn't... Him and his crew were sort of stabbed in the back by Stark and Shield, and they wanted to be able to use the technology, all that alien technology themselves, to make a buck. Which seems a pretty honest idea. I actually thought his Vulture was a really interesting character. It's nice to see a sort of more than one-dimensional villain. It's a bit like I very much like Ego in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, because it was a slightly complex character. But, you know, he wasn't ha twisting my moustache bad guy.
Pay for the experiments you did on me.
Even though I quite liked the villain in the first Iron Man film. Can't remember what his name was. He had a suit called the Ironmonger. But you know, he was very much of, I want to take all your super duper technology and just make money off of it. You know, why did you
did this to me.
come back
Please,
and
you
screw
have
up
to
my
end this
plans for making
experiment.
lots of money off wars?
You want some of this?
Can't, it's gone out of my head because what's the actor who played it? Jeff Bridges. Yeah, Jeff Bridges. He was so cool in that, especially the bit where he goes into the Mujahideen camp and the bloke's threatening him, and he just presses this button thing in his pocket.
Live with yourself
It
after all you put me
kills
through.
everyone in the room. But he was such a cool bad guy. But yeah, I wish there were more villains like that. Also, that the villains wouldn't die is another thing. Though I was criticising it in Batman, really shouldn't have it in Spider-Man. It was part of the. It was my one major gripe with Spider-Man 2 was the death of Dr. Octopus. Because, you know, in the comics, Dr. Octopus has died once or twice and come back to life. But he's supposed to be a friend to Peter Parker. You know, there was even a plot line at one point where him and Aunt May were like a couple.
How did I get here? Wait, where am I?
And there was all the Sinister Six storylines. Still, Sony are terrible at running these things, and I'm really surprised that, you know, that they even, well, a lot of them supposedly bought the rights back in the 90s,
for the experiments you did on
and
me.
the big drive of Marvel Studios has been to get those rights back. And supposedly one of the major things behind the acquisition of Fox is now the rights to the Fantastic Four will probably go back to Marvel Studios. So we might actually finally get the Fantastic Four movie that will be good. And all of the Fantastic Four villains like Galactus might actually appear in future Marvel movies, which I'm really looking forward to because I'm a big Galactus fan. Also, that you could bring in the Silver Surfer as well, and all of the rogues from the Silver Surfer universe. Because there are quite a few of them, like Reptile and Adam Warlock is supposedly going to be making an appearance in the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie. That bit at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where they've got like that sort of sarcophagus, inside that's Adam Warlock, and he is a really interesting character. You know, he's up there with sort of Doctor Strange as an interesting character. And for a while, Adam Warlock had control of the Infinity Gauntlet, and he actually could leave. He left the mortal plane, and he actually lived inside one of the what they call those little stones that have appeared in all these movies. Because
I'll make you pay
the Infinity Gauntlet's made up of all these what are they called? I think they're Eternity Stones or something like that they're called. And that they represent different parts of different forces in the universe. Like there's one for time, there's one for the mind. There's one that's actually in the head of the Vision. I think that's the Mind Stones in the Vision. There's the Time one is in Doctor Strange's thing he wears around his neck. I can't remember the other ones are. But when they're all collected together, that you put into the Infinity Gauntlet, you can control reality. And there was a whole Infinity Gauntlet storyline that became a big event, which originally started in the Silver Surfer comic, but then it spread out into all of the comics, and there was this huge event affecting everyone from the Hulk to Spider-Man to the Avengers, and it's weird that some of the characters were killed by Thanos, and then he'd bring them back to life because he was trying to impress Death. Because in the comics, Death is an actual physical being, and Thanos is in love with her because she's a female. Well, she's whatever she wants to be, but she can have the representation of a female.
Dr. Psycho must have knocked him out good.
But I think Atop the Fourth Wall's covered that actually quite recently. They covered, Linkara covered the Infinity Gauntlet event. Because it is quite an interesting one. It'd be pretty much unfilmable though.
I'm gonna keep looking for stray
It might be something that you'll see sort of like 10 years down the road or something, because it involved lots and lots of characters that just haven't appeared on screen yet. Like the Silver Surfer, you'd probably be into like the third or fourth film before Thanos would make an appearance.
How did I get here? Wait, where am I? Oh.
Because Thanos has died and come back to life a couple of times. Bit like Darkseid. Because Darkseid and Thanos are really the same character. Because they were both created by Kirby. Jack Kirby. Because he created the new gods in DC, but then he got annoyed by the writers that were writing on it, and he left and went to Marvel and recreated the new gods and called them the Titans. But pretty much most of them have got the same powers as the new gods, so it's like sort of he was copying himself, which I suppose any writer could do. But yeah,
LexCorp implanted
the new gods and the
devices in all of
Titans
their
are virtually the
metahuman
same
experiment
thing.
subjects. The monitoring station is on the hospital roof. Get up there and overload the station so these people can escape.
I did see a crappy jumper earlier. This new style of wearing awful Christmas jumpers. I saw a bloke at one of the stations I was visiting to sort stuff out. I did a little bit of cleaning as well because I was bored. But yeah, it was a real slow day today. I was sort of one of those days where you're at work and you're thinking, why am I at work? I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting here watching YouTube videos. I'm so bored. But yeah, I saw this bloke and he had a jumper on and it had lights on it, and I was like, I'd never wear that. You'd have to be sort of threatening me with with a gun to my head for me to wear something that awful.
Reporting from the Western Post.
You know, even though I did see a R2-D2 jumper that I'm possibly going to buy. I want to see it in a sale. It's at a local computer game shop. They have a lot of stuff like the Funko Pops and all that, you know, all the stuff. I do buy a lot of
that monitoring station,
the
Lex will have to track down those
sweatshirts and
patients
stuff
one by one
and hats.
Show his troops they have more to
Because
worry about
they're
right
pretty
now.
good at sales.
Like
they
facing us.
do a sale like to get rid of old stock every 6 months, and you know, getting an XXXL hoodie for something like £5 is pretty damn good. You know,
Do
I
you
like
have
a
time to help me?
bargain.
LexCorp's gladiator suits are running off a highly unstable power cell.
And
We believe
they sometimes have stuff like Funko Pops I'll get from my niece. I got her a Groot. She didn't even know who Groot was, and I got her a baby Groot. Because it was going for like a tenner. And I was like, oh, I'll get that. Annoyingly, the last time I was in there, though, it was all the fucking Harry Potter Funko Pops. Getting that load of old crap. I've never once liked Harry Potter. I've never understood what the appeal is. I watched the first, the third and the last movie, and all of them I was bored out of my mind. I couldn't understand what the appeal was. It's so babyish. They've all got their bloody twigs in their hand. And everything's dramatic, and it's all dramatic music, and I'm sitting there thinking, why am I so bored? It's like a lot of Hollywood Hollywood action movies, where it's action, and you're sitting there, and I'm just bored out of my mind. It's like when I went and saw Transformers the last night. Big explosions, and it was just so dull, and I've seen it so many times, and it's got no real connection to the previous movie, and it's who cares? The only good thing about it was there was no Shia LaBeouf, and there was no and Anthony Hopkins was in it, basically trolling the entire audience, you know, by sort of he was pretty much playing the same character he played in Westworld, but he was just playing this for the laughs. He was probably getting a lot of money. It had a lot of British actors in it, like Rebecca Front. I was like, Jesus Christ, Rebecca Front, they must have sort of drove up to your house with a great big lorry full of money and said, you know, if you appear in our Hollywood shit, or no plot Hollywood shit and act very English, we'll give you all this money.
This is Lois Lane for Daily Planet Live.
Still, I'd appear in a Transformers movie acting sort of all British if they wanted me to.
Which is entirely funded by
You know, no one's seriously going to rewatch that movie. I watched it once at the cinema, and I'm never going to watch it again on...
the wing currently remains open to metahumans seeking treatment for what Luther terms their unique needs.
Nice. Oh, right.
Go ahead, punk. Make my day.
Yeah, Transformers 5, no one... If you've seen it at the cinema, there's no way you're going to rewatch it on DVD. You know, even if they added loads and loads of extra scenes, you're not going to watch it. It's a terrible film. I think the most stupid plot element in it was that it had the Cybertron. Cybertron in it looked like a load of string, which I found a bit what? And the Earth is Unicron. I'm like, no, the Earth can't be Unicron. Unicron's not even linked with the Transformers. Unicron was created by a mad genius called I can't remember what his name is. Well, actually, there's two stories of where Unicron comes from. There was the story in the cartoon from an episode of it called Rise of the Primitives, and it was really terrible and stupid and made no sense whatsoever. And then there was the much better Simon Thurman, who created a lot of what became like the Transformers Bible, that Unicron and Primus were two beings from the previous universe, because the universe in Transformers oscillates. When it dies, a new one's reborn. And the spirit of evil from the previous universe was Unicron, and the spirit of good was Primus. And to fight each other on the physical realm in the new universe, each of them entered planets and created
Chief Researchers
worlds
General,
out of
this heart is a
those planets.
example of
So
our profound
Primus
work.
is the spirit that's right in the centre of Cybertron, and Unicron.
Trigon is using his daughter, the
Oh,
Titan
no.
Raven.
LexCorp implanted tracking devices in all of their metahuman
Yeah, I've done that
experiment
mission,
subjects.
mate. There's no
The monitoring station is on the hospital roof. Get
It's
up
a
there
weird
and overload the
glitch that
station
where
so these
they
people can
repeat what
escape.
the mission is, even though you've completed the mission. Where's that box? Oh, there it is.
I hope the heroes kick your
That
ass.
bloody 5 shields, man. But yeah, Primus and Unicron, you know, they had this weird storyline in the movie where it was Quintessa, and the Quintessons invented the Transformers in the cartoon. That they made robot slaves to serve them, and they were the Transformers. But where's my mission? Oh, there's something.
Sorry about that. Oracle is blocking any more transmissions from Lex's unique point of view. For now, join Supergirl inside. Help the metas and arrest whoever's in charge so they can stand trial for these crimes.
Yeah, it was. It looked very much like 4 scripts were sort of jammed into one,
How can you live with yourself after all?
which is another problem that Hollywood seems to have today.
I'll make you.
That and making films by committee. You know, the film by committee thing is such a bad idea, because you end up with a script that's all over the place, and lots of people decide to put ideas into the movie, and you end up with a mess like last year's
There are people trapped in tubes inside the hospital.
Ghostbusters. That was a film made by a committee.
They're being processed in tubes so they
And
can be used for their
really
energy.
weird
I
as
work for
well,
LexCorp,
because
but I'm
the
human too.
girl,
Get those people
one of
out
the
of
women
those
in
tubes.
it, she wrote Bridesmaids, and she won an Academy Award for writing Bridesmaids, which I've never watched because I'm not really into modern chick flicks. I like older chick flicks, but modern ones I find a bit sort of over the top and ridiculous. But yeah, but she wasn't one of the writers. They had that weird Paul Feig bloke, who is he is a real oddball guy. I know, because I followed him on Twitter for about 6 months, and some of the things he used to tweet out, I was like, Jesus Christ. You know, I don't think it was a full ticket. And it's weird because in it's made other films that have been quite good, like Spy, which it wasn't sort of wonderful, but at least it wasn't Ghostbusters 2. Ghostbusters 2016, just it was such a weird movie. It was like they couldn't decide whether they wanted to make a ridiculous sort of kids movie or an adult comedy. So you got stuff like queef jokes in it, and I was like, when I watched it at the cinema because I just wanted to understand why they would make such a terrible movie. Maybe all of the critics were wrong, but Jesus Christ, it was just terrible to watch. Just a completely awful movie. Oh no, not that one. Over here. Oh. Yeah, the premise was silly. The villain didn't really make much sense at all. I think the villain, the way they built him up, it was like they decided sort of a week in to
Brainiac's forces and
of making the trailer. Let's turn the villain of this into an internet reviewer. Let's have him act like one of those sort of douche bros who hate things, a bit like Mundane Mac. Let's make the villain into Mundane Mac. I'm like, well, yeah, that might be funny for you, but the audience doesn't know. There were jokes in there that were even aimed at YouTube. I was like, what is this movie? Is this movie a comedy or a way for you to get at people who said mean things about your fucking awful trailer?
Cadmus reinforcements deployed to Fuel Depot.
Your mission
it was the worst thing I've ever seen at the cinema. I watched the Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps, at the cinema. But even that was, at least it had some jokes and some humour, but Ghostbusters, I didn't laugh once.
Self-destruction imminent.
Entity set
I didn't even smile.
Surrender now.
Well, me personally, and it's not a conspiracy theory, I think that a lot of the criticism that was aimed at the movie was completely justified, and I also think that Sony's reaction to the criticism of saying it was just sexism was that they knew that they had a turkey on their hands. I think they knew from the start that the movie wasn't funny, wasn't interesting, was actually sort of pissing on the spirit of the 80s movies, and that they weren't going to make much money back, so they sort of created a false narrative. So, sort of.
You're right. I'm better than this.
I'm not critical of girls who are feminists. I can understand where they're coming from, but some of them are a bit dippy. Well, you get dippy in all directions. There's people who voted for Trump because of reasons that didn't really make a whole lick of sense. It's like people who I think one of the funniest tweets I've had in weeks was from I think it's Tim Blake, and he tweeted out a picture of something Sargon had said months and months ago on Twitter about how Trump was all for the working class, all the working people, and this was when the reading of the tax credits system came out. Well, it's been signed into law now, which I find very depressing, and it's geared completely around rich people. Working class people are completely left out in the cold. Trump's actually more hurting the working class because he's brought in he signed into law a bill that basically allows American restaurant owners and bar owners to take the tips of their staff. So if I've gone and had a very nice steak and the service has been wonderful, and I give a tip to the girl who's taken my order and all that, and I leave her, say, like a $20 tip because she's very nice, very friendly, she doesn't get that, the employer gets that, and it's up to the employer whether he wants to share that. And I think, Jesus Christ, that is so, you know, for a bloke who was boasting about making America great again, he seems to be only making it great for rich people, and fuck the workers, you know, fuck anyone who works for a living. Let's just give big tax breaks to millionaires and bankers. I'm like, Jesus Christ, how stupid people must feel now. All of those people who voted him in and thought that, you know, he was going to be on side and all that. God, must be depressing. bit like me in 2014, seeing how bad the Liberal Democrats became.
Great. I could use your help. I gotta transport these munitions out of here. Defend me while I get this teleporter working.
Supply point. Searching for source of disturbance.
Even though that did backfire on the Liberal Democrats eventually, because they lost a lot of support at the 2015 election. They sort of became a minority party. Supposedly they've won a lot of those seats back though, because Liberal Democrats are very good at running local councils.
In the command base. Here, we may
because they don't. They're like the middle ground. They don't.
Radiating a
follow extremes.
Wave that affects the brainy.
The unfortunate thing in UK politics, you've got the extreme right in the Conservatives and the extreme left in the Labour Party, and both sides, because they're extremes, they're not always really the best at running local councils, and that people are more attracted to the middle ground when it comes to local elections, because well, it's, you know, it's simple logic. They don't want to live in a state of extremes, which I find okay. I've got no problems with it. My local council are Conservatives, but they're more sort of like they're business minded, but they're not stupid. They take care of the elderly in this borough quite well, because they know that, well, my county has quite a large old age pensioners population. There's more old people. Well, the flats I live in are mostly old people. It's sort of like a 20-80 split, and the local council, they've actually been quite good recently about making everything accessible to particularly disabled people. because a lot of elderly people are disabled. Also, the obesity crisis is making a lot more people disabled.
Chief Researcher's Log.
That's
There are indications
all
that
over the
kryptonite may
Western
have
world.
applications as an energy
Basically,
Sequence activated.
lack of exercise is doing it. Because years
Identifying
ago,
target.
it's a strange mix of lack of exercise and central heating. People don't understand that either. That people actually burn calories more when they don't have heating on, because your body actually shakes and shivers, and your body's using energy from your fats to keep you warm. But if you've got central heating, you're in a constant state of raised temperature. Your body doesn't shiver, so it's not burning any calories. You retain more calories. So if you want to start losing weight, turn the heating off. Also turn the heating off because it's not very good for your immune system. Because my flats, they've done up all of the central heating, so it's now gas central heating. But I use it very sparingly, only when it's very, very cold, like when we had the snow recently. I turned it on for about an hour just to warm up.
Control center defense sequence complete.
Came home
Defensive
from the gym.
measures are now
I was
online.
freezing. You know, too much cold's unhealthy because that can also damage your immune system. But they reckon a lot of children's allergies today are the result of central heating, killing the bacteria in the air in the house. And from a young age, children aren't getting that exposure to viruses, and it's affecting their immune
Brainiac
system.
Servitor and its greater accumulators oversee the transfer of the kryptonite onto their ship. You may not want to face this battle alone. Once the accumulators are down and the kryptonite is safe, Oracle will hack the ship's teleporter so you can deactivate the Prime Servitor itself.
Here, I could hear one. There it is. Ugh. And there's the other one. Ugh. We're going to give it another 20 minutes.
Chief Researcher's Log.
Wow.
Our research confirms that kryptonite causes considerable harm to Kryptonians.
Or 12 minutes, looking at the time, because you know, I didn't sleep very well last night because my tailbone was hurting, and I didn't sleep very well the night before because I woke up too early. So I'm beginning to feel a bit. Oh, fortunately, this week I'm only working 5 days because I'm only working up to Sunday, and then I've got Monday and Tuesday off because it's Christmas and Boxing Day, and then I'm off for 2 more days, and then I'll be back on early. Still, been talking with a bloke at work because one of the jobs in my team, well, they're looking for someone to fill it, and this bloke's applied for about 3 people have applied for it. And well, he's saying that if he gets it, he's interested in doing permanent late shifts, which I'm completely great about. I could then do permanent early shifts because it's more tiring, but I prefer doing earlies because then I can do stuff like birthing stocks and things like that. which it's a harder job, but it's less having to deal with loads of old people who can't read a fucking timetable. It's also less me having to appear at stations at the last minute to take over jobs because someone's decided that they've got Monday-itis. Or they don't. They get Friday-itis, which is that Friday comes along and they only want to do half the shift because they want to go out and get drunk with their friends. Well, that was quite cool. The Talented. Who's this? Whoa!
Launch missile sequence.
Bit. What's that? Bit shell?
System failure. Analyzing ability.
Got you, you bitch.
Life. The victory is yours. Brainiac has failed to gain the green kryptonite. We will store it now at the Watchtower, where it can be properly guarded. The Justice League thanks you, and I will certainly contact you again.
Bollocks.
Martian Manhunter, out.
Oh, it's locked out. Ugh. Takes me back to the days of playing Ultima. You get something that looked really cool, and then you try to level up with it, and it wouldn't really work. And you're just like, won't work because you're not leveled up enough to use that weapon. You're just like, Does that look good? Too much Batman. I'll go back to what I was wearing. Whew. Right, 8 more minutes. Oh, I've got a business. For some reason I'm hovering over the ground. Return to last location. Ugh. Funny, the camera seems to add another £20 to me. I don't feel that fat.
Sorry about that. Oracle is blocking any more transmissions from Lex's...
Bloody tailbone. Definitely got to go to the doctors about this. It's just... I've had it for nearly 7 years now.
Go ahead.
Originally, I'd only get it if I sat down for like up to 6 hours. Like when I first started experiencing it, I was on an aeroplane to Cuba, and we were in the air for like 12 hours. And my bum started hurting, and I was like, "Oh, what's this?" You know, I thought initially it was something like hemorrhoids or something, but and it's magnified and magnified and magnified to the point now it hurt so badly that I get days where I actually feel depressed because it just seems to be nothing but hurting. I've got to make some room. What's that? Nope. Don't want that. Try that on. How do I look? Terrible. We'll get rid of that. Radar enhancer, I'll definitely use that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that.
You! Oh! You little punk! You want some of this? I'm hit! It's go time. You want some of this?
Supposedly one of these punch streams. I briefly had a little look at them over the whole Crown Tea thing, and one of them, it does interest me slightly.
Don't come any closer.
It's got Vadim Newquist on it, who I'm quite a fan of. Creation of
Get out of my mind!
He's actually quite an interesting bloke as well.
No.
He's very funny and self-deprecating. And also, but I'm a bit put off because
The experiments,
failure
they make me so angry.
Failure accomplished, or whatever he's calling himself now, is in.
So you found my metahuman experiments. What else can you find?
I don't
Let's
like
see
Andy
how well you
Wolski
do
at
with a
all.
little
I think
game of
he's a
hide and
shit-stirring
seek.
twat. He sort of.
Chief Researcher's Journal.
Acts
Always wear
stupid
insulated gloves
sometimes.
when handling cryotechnic
Like,
samples.
he doesn't understand things, and it seems a bit fake. I think he's a lot cleverer than he pretends he is, and he knows right from wrong, and he knows when he's saying stuff that is disingenuous, but he sticks to his guns because of the ego thing, which I'm also a bit sick and tired of his constant moaning and groaning about SJWs, and you think, well, I could understand if the White House is full of SJWs, but it's gone completely the other way. Why aren't you talking about how awful Trump is? And the lunatics he's got around him, some of them you listen to Betsy DeVoe, she is absolutely on another planet bonkers. And Linda McMahon, oh my god, I don't think they could have chosen a worse person to be in charge of what ministry. It's something to do with business. I think it's small business she's in charge of. I'm like, her business doesn't. WWE doesn't see the wrestlers as actual employees, they're contractors. And the reason why they're contractors is that way they don't have to pay them for long-term illnesses and injuries they sustain in their wrestling careers. They don't have to pay for their expenses, like travelling expenses, You know, and when they go berserk and kill their wife,
Sometimes
like,
I think there just isn't enough of me to go around.
Chris Benoit,
Time to change that. How about a little more me?
They don't have to have any major involvement apart from sort of telling the press that they didn't know anything about his steroid abuse.
Pop goes the weasel.
You know, which I always found completely unbelievable. But making Linda McMahon, putting her in that position,
It's been a real blast.
Blooming crazy or what? I suppose it could have been worse. It could have been Vince McMahon.
I'm so happy
And
I
it really
could
would have been a
burst.
shit show. Because
Sorry to burst your bubble.
this whole Hollywood thing with
she blows.
Harvey Weinstein, whatever. You know, you don't have to be sort of sort of looking for hidden evidence when you look at WWE. You know,
Fire in the hole!
when someone finally says about that, the sort of sex scandals that have been going on in WWE, everything from paedophilia to murder, rape, you know, it's pretty stuff. But when any of that will actually come out, and you know where it'll go, I've got no idea. You know, it could be that no one will care because WWE really hasn't got any competition, and Vince McMahon hasn't really been in charge of WWE for like nearly, I think, 2-3 years now. He's more of like a sort of presence on screen and all that. He's not running the ship anymore.
Have you been? All right.
Even though I'm not a big fan of Triple H, I find him a bit.
But together, we could make history. And speaking of history, I'm in the business of collecting things. Old things, new things, sometimes blue things, but most importantly, things with power.
But yeah, when the big sex scandals come out in WWE, Jesus Christ, I think Linda McMahon's White House job will be gone pretty sharpish. I just find it really funny with the people with conspiracy theories that all this stuff's coming out in Hollywood now because they're trying to humiliate Donald Trump because Donald Trump's been known to hang around with Hollywood people, and they're hoping that someone's going to sort of rat him out. It's like, no, I think it's more to do with women being basically told if you suck a producer's cock, you're going to get
Cisco Journal Entry, Meta Research Project,
a film career. Well, even TV
Dr.
careers.
Cisco Journal Entry, Meta Research Project.
Because it used to be mainly in the music industry, all that sort of stuff was going on behind the scenes with women getting careers out of being sort of, you know, sex objects and all that, but I don't think it's PC culture. It's probably being magnified by elements of PC culture and the media as well, because you know the news media isn't stupid. They've tailgated all this stuff, and they've brought up stories from the past. Supposedly that bloke who was in Transformers 4, the Dippy
You have no
bloke,
idea what it's like to be me.
the comedian
What
is.
gives you the right?
He's
You
been
think you can stand in judgment over me? Time for you to walk a mile in my shoes.
Some sort of assault.
One day, all these
back
heroes will
in
be my
2000
slaves.
or something.
Today,
and it's
their
come
mere
out
image
now,
will be your death.
and
For the glory
it's
of
destroyed
Gaia.
his.
Put your muscle where your mouth is. Oh, goody!
He
Someone
had some
to
cartoon show, and it's supposedly only going to run for one season because the studio's dropping him because of his involvement in some form of misconduct. But, you know,
It's been a real blast.
it's a stupid thing to do. If you are into sort of kinky sex and all that, the best thing to do is
Chief Researchers Journal
is
not as
find
dangerous
a
when
cool girl
separated
who
from
likes
its
all
owner.
that stuff. Don't do it with some girl who doesn't know what she's doing. Or maybe meet a girl at a club or something who's into that sort of thing. But don't do it to a complete stranger because they'll think you're some sort of pervert and accuse you of being a sort of a pervert. But that's the problem with people with sort of, well, it's not just Hollywood. There's been cases of people involved in sport. There was there's been a whole situation involving Olympic gymnasts being sexually abused by their coaches and things like that. It's just like, oh, blimey. Unfortunately, the narrative is so much now towards believing anything. I think people are going to have to be very fucking careful not to fall into the trap of believing everyone, because not everyone is going to tell the truth. You know, there are cases where, well, there was a big case in Canada where a love rat, two women decided to get revenge on him. He was some sort of journalist, a radio journalist or disc jockey or something like that. And they accused him of
How can you resist
rape.
my illusions?
And it was found out in court that they engineered the story together to get revenge on him for being a sort of love rat. So, you know, it can be a pretty damaging thing if not properly policed. You know, for me, I'm a firm believer in any case should be tried in court. It shouldn't be tried by the media, because I've seen in the UK people like there was a fellow called John Leslie who was a children's TV presenter, and he liked kinky sex, and a group of women came forward accusing him of all sorts of stuff, and the media, it was what was described as trial by media. The media believed everyone, not just people who were telling the truth. They believed every story and would print it, and in the end it turned out that most of the women involved were attention seeking, or that he hadn't stayed with them. You know, he was a love rat, as they call it, where basically, you know, he liked lots of women but didn't want to stay with them after he'd bedded them, which is pretty behaviour, but, you know, that's not rape. And you know,
Thank
his
you.
his career
Dr.
and his
Psycho
life was pretty
weakened
much
me with
destroyed
kryptonite and
by
stuck
the
me
media.
in this red sunlight cage.
Particularly
he even
the
took
Rupert
some of my
Murdoch
blood.
newspapers.
Sorry about that. Oracle is blocking any more transmissions from
And then
Lex's
finally,
unique
when he
point of
was
view.
sort of almost
For
at
now,
breaking
join Supergirl
point,
inside.
someone
Help the
had
metas and arrest whoever's in
secretly
charge so
taken
they
a
can
photo
stand
of
trial
him
for these
snorting
crimes.
cocaine at a party, and that completely destroyed his television career. But you know, it's just the whole thing was so petty and vicious, and the media said incredibly revolting and backed up all the false accusations against him. And you know, I wasn't a massive fan of the bloke, but you know, having a witch hunt against the person, and then it turns out that they're not guilty of the crimes.
Needed some good news right now. This situation is an utter
You know, that's probably going to eventually happen with this whole Hollywood thing, that they accuse the wrong person and they do, you know, they start judging the person before the fact, before the criminal case and investigation is complete, and someone will be so destroyed by it that they'll top themselves. Because that's happened. Well, it happened in the UK recently with a accusation of I think he was a Conservative councillor or something like that, who was involved and accused of sexual misconduct, and the case hadn't even really started, and he killed himself. So you know, whether it turns out that the accusations are true or not, are sort of a bit moot now, because he's dead. You know, that's the problem with a free press. You know, free press doesn't mean that they're going to print all the truth. Well, you look at Alex Jones, and I don't think he's printed anything true. It all seems to be a constant stream of consciousness.
Star Lab's goal is to keep our allies equipped with the most advanced technologies.
Bugger, scratchy inside my mouth, all soaring. Bugger. I think I wolfed a salad earlier, and you know, I think that's where I scratched my mouth. Annoying. Oddly, I even watched a Spoony one video, the Spoony one, you know, Noah Attaway video earlier.
Keeping your equipment in good working order makes all the difference, as well as making sure you've got the latest, greatest gear.
Star Wars, the Last Jedi. It was quite good because he wasn't saying stupid shit. I watched Sargon of Akkad's one where he called it Gender Wars, and it was just a pile of ranting twaddle. It was even more. I actually apologised to Stefan Molyneux, because Stefan Molyneux's one, at least it was entertaining. All Carl Benjamin did was basically explain the plots to the first two movies for the first 15 minutes, and then whined and whinged about Hollywood and how women in Hollywood are sick of being sex objects. But it's such a complete fucking shit. It's just the most ridiculous nonsense all the time. Oh, I like that. Let's just check one of these. And I haven't watched Sargon of Akkad videos for quite a while because you know, I get enough of people posting on Twitter when he said something really stupid, but fucking hell, the crap he was coming out with, calling the Ray character a Mary Sue and all that, and I don't get why anyone watches his stuff anymore. It just comes across as a complete toss pot. Yeah, the Spoonie review, he started and said, you know, first things first, any fanboys who are going to rant and rave about this movie, I'm not interested. I put it in the comments of Sargon's one. I said, he's talking about you there, Carl, because you don't really have anything to say. All your ranting and raving it comes from your total hatred of women. And yeah, I'm not a full believer in every male being toxic, but there's certainly an underclass of toxic wankers on YouTube now. You know, from people like that fucking no bullshit twat, all the way through to people like that Magic the Gathering wanker, the one who didn't like that women, a cosplay model. His whole thing was against the cosplay model because she was getting money off of Patreon. I was like, what? What the fuck's it got to do with you anyway, you bloody twat? And then he was whinging at all the people. He called anyone who complained about it an SJW, and I was like, no, they're not all SJWs. They're probably people who look on a bloke in his 30s who collects cards and reviews kids' toys, because that's basically what Magic the Gathering was. It was like a type of top trumps. They see a 30-year-old man doing that for a living and getting money off of Patreon for doing that and go, well, you're being a bit of a hypocrite, aren't you, you twat? You know, I think the bloke's a bit of a wanker, really. Also a bit simple. I think he's a bit of a... Well, I wouldn't even say he's autistic, because I've met plenty of autistic people who aren't complete arseholes. But this whole thing on YouTube of blokes who... Well, I've talked to them on Twitter, and they're like children. They can't take any criticism. They can't. Everything's got to be an overreaction all the fucking time to anything. Doesn't matter what it is. You know, Sargon and, well, Blair White's the worst. Blair White posts headlines and whinges about them but doesn't actually read what the story is and just goes with the assumption. Goes with the assumption without actually reading what the whole thing. Destiny recently did a video where he was talking with Andy Wolski about that. That you know, the one bloke was supposedly whinging on Twitter about the story of Little Red Riding Hood. Originally is about it's a warning to young girls about men trying to pick them up to have sex with them. You know, complete strangers. It was like a warning given to teenage girls about strangers. And this bloke had put a post up saying about SJWs taking a story and perverting it with their sick minds and all this stuff. And the story itself, that's what it's about. That it's a warning for young women about strange men. You know, it's like a sort of stranger danger. Oh, trying to get all this balanced. But Blair White's such a complete bimbo, and not an attractive bimbo. You know, a bit basically like she's like a sort of Lauren Southern bimbo. You know, really obnoxious and doesn't think things through and overreacts to everything. Actually, the worst thing about the whole skeptic community thing on YouTube is how many of them are such crybullies. You know, especially Sargon of Akkad. Any criticism of him, he goes completely bonkers and screams and shouts about how he's being censored and all this stuff. And it's like, Jesus Christ, you're such a sad little man, aren't you?
This armor packs a lot of power. Prove that you can handle it, and you'll earn a suit that shows everyone what you're fighting for.
Well, I've got enough. I suppose I've got to level up to something. No, I don't want those. I don't want those bloody nanite things.
It's Oracle.
Too much like busy
That holo
work.
token shows the emblem of the Meta Wing. Metahumans gain their powers from their unique genetic heritage. These heroes are mentored by Superman.
Right, well, I'm going to end this stream now because, well, it was nearly a 3-hour stream. See, this is my problem. I start talking. I had a nickname at work called, that they called me Random, because we used to have conversations in the staff room back when we had a shared staff room. Now I have to sit on a bench sometimes out with the public because they went all berserk over security. You know, I've only been on the working in the transport industry since 1999, but I must be a sleeper agent for ISIS or something. Some bollocks. But yeah, they called me Random because we'd start with a conversation about cats, then we'd move on to the 100 Years' War, then we turn it, go to jam, and then talking about sort of porn and stuff. Oh God, some of the weird conversations about it. I was explaining to a born again Christian why he's not a Christian recently at work, because he let me in their little staff room for about half an hour because it was snowing, and you know, I think he sort of 20 minutes in was thinking maybe I shouldn't have let he shouldn't have let me in. So I was just being honest. I was explaining that most people aren't Christians because to be a Christian you can't judge people. You know, it's written in black and white in the New Testament that Christians are supposed to be Christian all the time. They can't look upon someone who isn't a Christian and start judging them. That's for God to judge, which is one of the reasons why it's of people who call themselves Christian, there's very few who actually are.
Each piece of enhanced battle armor is available in multiple combat roles and customizable colors.
As Christians. And you tell a Christian that, and I.
So what'll it be today? Looking to change the look? A new do? What'll it be?
Oh, that's great. I've got a hat on, so I can't see my hair. Take the mask off. I've never got hair with this mask. Nah, I won't bother to it. Yeah, I'm gonna end now. Well, I'll see you later. Toodaloo.